Great rising to everyone listening out there. It is February 4th, 2021, and I would like to welcome you back to the King and I Life podcast. This segment of African American historical figures, places, and events is hosted by yours truly, Soul Toucher the Poet. Today, I'm going to talk to you about Jesse Leroy Brown. Jesse Leroy Brown was born October 13th, 1926 in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. Brown was one of 5 children born to a sharecropper father and a schoolteacher mother. Brown's love for flying began around the age of 6 when his father took him to an air show. This encouraged him to read heavily about aviation and learn that there were black pilots. In 1937, at the age of 11, Brown wrote a letter to then-President Franklin Delano Roosevelt where he complained about the injustice of African American pilots being kept out of the United States Army Air Corps. The White House actually responded, stating they appreciated his viewpoint. Since schools where he lived with his family were of poor quality, Brown lived with his aunt and attended Eureka High School in Hattiesburg. In high school, he played basketball, football, ran track, and graduated salutatorian in 1944. Brown attended Ohio State University right after high school, believing he could compete with white students. This was against the advice of his principal. His other motivation was to follow in the footsteps of his role model, Jesse Owens. Brown majored in architectural engineering and maintained a high GPA even though he had to work the midnight shift and several other jobs and deal with racism. In 1946, during his second year in college, Brown enlisted into the United States Naval Reserve's aviation program despite the many challenges it took. He also joined the Naval Reserve Officer Training Corps where he received a $50 monthly stipend that allowed him to quit his many jobs and focus on his studies. Brown completed his architectural engineering degree in 1947. In March of that year, he reported to Glenview Naval Air Station in Glenville, Illinois for Naval Flight Officer training. Even though Brown encountered racism from his white instructors and peers and hostilities from black cooks and janitors, he was one of 6 trainees to win Wings of Gold on October 28, 1948. During his training, he secretly married his high school sweetheart, Daisy Pearl Nix. Brown was the first African American man to complete Navy flight training. After becoming a commissioned officer on 26 April 1949, Brown reported that incidents of racism and discrimination were substantially relieved. By late 1950, Brown was assigned as a squadron section leader and participated in the Korean War. On December 4, 1950, while on a 6-plane mission to support U.S. Marine ground troops, Brown's plane took damage from Chinese small arms and crash landed. Against direct orders, Brown's wingman, Lieutenant Junior Grade Thomas J. Hudner, Jr., intentionally crash landed his plane in an attempt to rescue Brown, risking court-martial. His efforts were unsuccessful as Brown was trapped in the cockpit. Brown's last request to Hudner before being forced to leave the crash site with the rescue helicopter was to tell his wife Daisy that he loved her. It was decided to give Brown a warrior's funeral to honor him and prevent his body and fighter to come into possession of the enemy. The Navy sent a squadron of fighters to bomb the crash site with napalm. During the sortie, they recited the Lord's Prayer. Brown was posthumously awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross. In 1973, 23 years after his death, the frigate USS Jesse L. Brown was christened in his honor. Brown also received the Purple Heart and the Air Medal. Brown was the first African-American U.S. Navy officer killed in the war. In July of 2013, Thomas Hudner unsuccessfully attempted to negotiate with the North Korean government to recover Brown's remains. If you would like to give us feedback or input on this and other topics, submit your request to kingandI369@gmail.com. That's KINGANDEYE369@gmail.com. Thank you, and and have a lovely day.